barrels with the wood chips. Now, whenever you have 100 gallons of water in here just sitting here, it can go a little stagnant, so every now and then you want to let it out. When you're getting closer to your drought months in July and August is when you would keep those a little bit more filled up and turn them on as your beds are getting a little dry. Having 6 inches of wood chips on your garden as a mulch, and I'm not talking bark mulch, I'm not saying the dyed mulch or anything like that you find at Home Depots or garden centers or whatever. Localized companies, tree companies, will cut down trees for you, and usually they'll give you for free. If you don't know any companies, a great company is Iron Tree Service, based out of Wyoming.
So the reason we use wood chip coverings on our gardens, is everybody familiar with that? Does anybody know what that is? So we're trying to emulate the natural forests and natural growing. When you go out for a walk in the woods or something, there's always a cover over the soil. You can never just see dirt. It's always trees, matter, leaves, sticks, twigs for about 6 to 8 inches. And how do you compete with nature when you're gardening by yourself in your backyard? You have to till the soil every year, you have to re-amend it, you have to fertilize it, but the forest never has to do any of those things because it's doing it by itself. So we're just trying to take those practices and utilize them in our own backyard gardens.
Yeah, let me see a show of hands. How many people raked their leaves this past fall? I'd probably say that's about 65, 70%. I would recommend never raking your garden ever again, raking your lawn ever again. Mow it. In the fall time, mow all those leaves, chip them down, and leave them there. That's fertilizer for your grass. The reason why we have beautiful lawns with all of this beautiful green grass is because it's not natural. It looks pretty, it's really nice, but the fact of the matter is, it's a bunch of chemicals on your lawn. When you have certain companies that come down and you see those little flags that say don't walk on it, and there's like a warning symbol, well, what are we doing to the world when people and humans can't even walk on the grass? So my best recommendation is to go back to Mother Nature, look around you when you're in the forest, and realize what's happening with the plants. So I'm sorry. Let's go back one more time. Recycling non-organic waste, and that's where we're going to get into the next slide. Recycling non-organic waste. So why do we? You're going to ask me, oh great. So we have a bunch of fluoride, and I can't put water barrels because I live in an apartment. So what do I do? Well, it's really great. They sell these things called Garden Pure filters. You just get a nice garden filter. It's a carbon filter. You hook it onto your hose. You hook it onto your spigot in your kitchen if you're in an apartment sort of situation, and that will remove chloramine, fluoride, all of those sort of nasties that will kill your soil food with. Or if you have a house, of course, do the rainbows. Going on next, we got worms. So I stated that we like to compost traditionally and non-traditionally. So I recommend doing both. Composting is important. We, as humans, we produce an enormous amount of trash. Where's all that trash going? It's going everywhere it shouldn't be. The only thing that you can't recycle, essentially, is plastic. So recycle at your home, utilize the town. But what do you do with your organics, your organic waste? In your garden, I recommend setting up something like this. This is a compost den that we set up. This is Daryl building for another customer. This is a compost den. It's a freestanding structure that can be removed. We basically just put down cinder blocks with a few tie irons to set them in. No concrete, nothing poured, anything like that. So it's completely organic and movable. That's a 4x4 that we did. We put a little bit of planks in the bottom to provide aeration, and then they're separated by about a 1/2 inch each, so there's aeration going through. That would set up about a 2x2 pile in a 4x4 area. You want to have area for airflow all around your pile and underneath your pile as well, and that's why that's there. Right here is the kitchen composter. It's called Ecotonics. I use this on a daily basis. Every time I eat food and I have some things left over, I'll simply take my plate and scoop it right into this. This is literally this picture was taken in my kitchen yesterday. I cleaned it, of course. Sometimes looks a little dirtier than that. But essentially what you do is you take your kitchen scraps, your food that you'd otherwise throw in the garbage disposal or throw in your trash, and you grind it through that. In the bottom here is a little pan that comes out. You pull it out, and it has a bunch of shredded food scraps. I put that into a little bin that has a little carbon filter on the top so it doesn't smell. Again, I have an 8.5-month pregnant wife and a little child that loves to get his hands dirty. So I need to keep things a little clean, and I know that's important for everyone that's in this room right now. So when I take this, I put it right into this. And what is this? This is a system of worm bin processing and composting. So basically, we got worms. Everybody see Dumb and Dumber, we got worms. Whenever I saw that first scene, I was like, oh my God, that's like so gross. But now here I am staying on stage saying that I have worms. We have a composter right here. So this is a red wiggler composting bin. What I do is I take some food scraps from here, and inside this bin there's about 150 to 250 red wiggler worms. Their population changes over time, but what regular worms do, they're composting worms. If any fishermen in the room, they're those little red worms that you use when you go freshwater fishing. They're not night crawlers. They're not those normal worms that you see in the ground. They're little red wiggler worms. These little red wiggler worms are basically what makes up the planet. They create soil. They help out plants. Basically, they take all the organic waste that we make as humans, and they chew it up. They scoop it out, and they make what's called earthworms castings. Earthworm castings are the best stuff on Mother Earth. It's nutrient-rich fertilizer for your garden. They also need bedding. Okay, worms need bedding. It's a little kind of like they're kind of like pets. You have to kind of treat them like a pet. So they need a little bedding because they can't just be living in a high pH or a low pH environment, which is food scraps. So what do you do with all that junk mail that comes into your mail every day? Shred it. Shred all that junk mail. Remove plastic. Remove any glossy pages because that's glossy is plastic, and your worms will love you for it. Shred it. And basically, it's a 50-50 ratio to start. Without getting too involved in the worms, because you basically have to create a nice climate for them. You treat them like a pet, and you keep them out of direct sunlight and in 60 to 65 degree weather all the time. This is a little bin. It's about this big. Daryl and I have 4 bins. It's about as big as this stage.
Worm wigwams.
Yeah, they come
about my height. They're pretty big.
Yeah, and we have about 150,000 in each one of those, each worm. So we run. I run a restaurant as well on the side besides this, and as we know, restaurants are extremely bad entities for the environment. And here I am, an organic guy, saying that I run a restaurant. How can you do that? So what I do is I apply all of these principles into the restaurant that I run. So what we do is we take all of our food scraps, all of our menu scraps, any paper scraps, trash, any of that sort of stuff, and we put them onto our red worm wiggler system. These are available on Amazon. This is available on Amazon. We can sell these to you and also set these up for you at home. That's not why I'm here today, but that's a part of our offer that we do.
So we've touched upon soil, we've touched upon water, and the next thing is what are we going to grow in our gardens?
Yeah, so what does all this mean? Why do we do this? It's great to have worms, great to have nice soil and everything, but if you're not gardening the correct way, it's and what is the correct way? Polyculture, not monoculture. Mother Nature never had 800 rows of cornfields in a row. That just didn't exist. What happens when you have monoculture when you have monoculture happening, you have insect problems, and then you have pesticides coming in, and then pesticides ruin the plant's genetics over time, and then you have to go forward with GMO sourced genetics, which is basically pesticides built into the genetics. So what we recommend is doing polyculture. And polyculture is creating a symbiotic relationship amongst the plants. Daryl is a master of this. Daryl's been gardening with his grandfather since he was 2 years old, and his grandfather was a master at this. And there's another reason why I partnered with Daryl for the company.
So we like to do beneficial gardening and companion planting. So the Three Sisters, we had a whole garden bed dedicated just to that. We can produce all growing year with it. So the first thing that would come up would be the beans and the peas that we use. They grow up the corn vines, and we have squash planted underneath that provides more ground cover and inhibits weed growth and certain things like that. So we can go throughout the growing year. We can produce beans, and then once the first bean harvest is over, we can try a second one, and then the corn will start coming in, and then the squash will come in at the end of the harvest. So you can continually harvest from the same garden bed all year without just a row of this, a row of that, and a row of whatever it might be.
Yeah, so instead of those monoculture fields, there should be fields of Three Sisters gardens, and Mother Nature would take care of business.
And the same with the apple tree guild planting. So trees hate grass. You should never have grass and trees growing together. You should either mulch around your tree or wood chip or whatever. So we grow other plants around it. We have grass inhibiting herbs that we put around it and other vegetables that grow well with the apple.
Yeah, and then all around here is kale, so it's getting full sunlight. So what we try to do and what we try to teach, Daryl and I speak quite often and try to do this education quite often. And again, what we're trying to show is throw up everything that you know over the last 100 years and look at the 1800s and how they did things.
And we're trying to maximize as much space as we can with our garden beds. So if we're growing those, like with the Three Sisters example, you're growing as much as you can in the smallest space that you have. And then once you do have this garden bed and you're maximizing your space and you're maximizing your harvest, what do you do with all of this food? I mean, you have neighbors, family, everybody can, take a little pick off of it, but you still always will have something left over. So what do you do with that food? You can can it, you can store it. We have root cellars, which probably no one in here has anymore because no one really knows what a root cellar is.
That's another day, another topic, but we can also inform you about root cellars, and they're very easy to do at your house and very cheap.
For an example, with a lot of our leftover produce from last year, we did a lot of farmers markets, but we still had leftover produce, and Chris wanted to feed his very young son the best of the best. So if you puree it and freeze it in ice cube trays, you have it portioned out. Just once it's frozen, take it out, put it in a bag, and you have portions of each frozen puree, so you're not constantly thawing up the whole thing and portioning it out a little bit better.
So why do we do this? And why does where's the proof in the pudding? So what I wanted to do today was show you a few different examples of everything that we kind of showed you today. Speaking about flowers, produce, fruits and vegetables, whatever you want to do, all of these facets can be implemented into your garden. So this past year we grew a Atlantic giant pumpkin, all organic. We didn't enter it into the Topsfield Fair this year because 2,000 pounds won, but it was one of those things. We never grown a giant pumpkin. We just wanted to. It was fun. So we grew one, and it came out pretty darn big. And that's a pretty good representation of it. That was generally about how big it was on the screen. 550 pounds gauged. We measured it. Front, back, earth, everything. That took about 35 days or so of growing once the fruit set was on. And then it stalled out. So genetically speaking, this wasn't going to be a giant, but it was a pretty good pumpkin. We were going to enter it, but then we decided that we just donate it. We were contacted by.
We were contacted by a local park that displays. They do a jack-o'-lantern contest every year with the local elementary schools. So they had 300 jack-o'-lanterns with the giant pumpkin in the middle. So it was pretty nifty that we could get back to the community.
Yeah, and then after that, I'm sorry.
And the pumpkin, it wasn't like something that we were definitely invested in, but we didn't supplement it. We didn't fertilize it again. We didn't inject it with milk magnesia or any of those other crazy things. We just set it and forget it, and we kind of tried to see where it would go and how we could hone in on those skills better for this year. So we'll probably get closer to the 2,000 range this year, but I don't know if we'll get there.
This wasn't fertilized at all. This was just done with our earthworm castings, and we didn't water it. These things need a ton of water. They need a ton of water as it's marketed, right, out there. But to be honest with you, I didn't water this at all, not at all.
No, the wood chip bed retained all the water from the rain, and then it just took off.
So it's a pretty good representation of the wood chips. See, you got some sticks, twigs. You do have some bark. I don't recommend a lot of bark, but some bark is okay. And then just a lot of wood chips.
And notice how they're all different sizes.
Yep. Biggest.
You don't want to use the same size because it's going to break down at different times. It's going to retain different amounts of moisture. So if you have a good composite mix of your wood chips, it's going to benefit the soil.
Just had to check the time. I don't want to step on anybody's toes here. So again, never fertilize. It's just with our earthworms casting. This is a broccoli plant. Everybody has seen this. That's just a shear. And look how big that broccoli plant. That was planted late season, and it just went crazy.
And notice the mulch, the wood chips. It's about 5-6 inches of wood chips, and then the soil.
This is an autumn sunflower bed. Autumn sunflowers here, all around, and in the back are mammoths.
Yeah, and these mammoths, I'm 6'6", and I stand about here.
So you can
so those things were monsters.
But those were just tall. We made some really big ones too. And that's the beauty of growing organics. You just get some beautiful colors and smells. You do get those from the chemicals, but it's not natural. Seeing something in real sunlight grown from Mother Nature is just a beautiful thing. That's a giant mammoth sunflower. That's me with my son. So organics works, and how the methods that we showed you work. This is a sunflower, huge. I mean, this isn't even a great representation of how big it was. Probably this big. It got so big it ended up bending over the plant because I didn't stake it. And again, I planted this late season. This is all late season. This picture was taken. I actually harvested a lot of these seeds, and this is probably taken in late August, early September, maybe. My son Jack. So again, organics. I love growing things big. So this is some zucchini. He was a big boy. He was born at 10 pounds. At this picture, he was almost 20 pounds, and you can see the size of the summer squash and the zucchini. This is just a fun picture that you can see how big these things can grow. This is, again, a late season tomato plant. This is one tomato plant. So just went absolutely crazy. There is a cage somewhere in there. Again, I don't fertilize, I don't water. I don't pay for fertilizer, I don't pay for water. I don't pay for wood chips. Again, it's all of the methods that we just showed you. I would love to go into more in-depth detail on those methods that we touched upon today, but you can certainly email us, and we're a free resource of education. Just certainly email us any questions that you may have from today's lecture.
Some watermelons, again, never watered once.
Yep.
Melons, squash, pumpkins, they all take an obscene amount of water, and we didn't water once.
Not once. Besides rain, I mean, when it rains out, that's considered watering, but we live in New England, and we had a pretty hard drought, July and August. But again, don't have to water. Again, growing organically, you create nutrient-dense food. So you don't have GMO seeds or sourcing. You don't have You're not using any pesticides or herbicides or anything like that. So what happens is you just get this super nutrient-dense, rich food, and it just basically doesn't rot. It sounds crazy, but here's the picture. This is 21 days. This went to day 35, and it didn't rot. It just dried out. Tomatoes make it about 2 weeks, but then they have so much moisture, and then they'll start to rot. Typically, I put store-bought tomatoes, farm-bought tomatoes, and then my tomatoes, and those other two are always rough. Some of the help that we can provide and have provided for many people is they'll call us up and say, hey, we have so many issues going on, and this one was having some issues with drought, it was having some issues with blight, but the blight was really a magnesium, it was showing its face because of a magnesium deficiency. So we came down and provided her all new soil and got her magnesium deficiency fixed. This is 2 weeks later, and she didn't lose any crop. And we wood chipped her, and she said that she didn't water the rest of the season. So the proof is in the pudding with organics. This is crazy stuff that's like, whoa, this doesn't work. But I hope you realize that it can work, and that maybe you will try it at home. It's different. It's not like anything you're going to see when you walk out from here, but it works. And again, if you ever need any help, time, consideration, anything, email us pictures, photos, questions, paragraphs of things, and we'll certainly email you back and help you out. We're based out of Hamilton, Massachusetts, and our base of operations is at Green Meadows Farm. And last year we had a lot of Beverly farmers markets and Salem farmers markets and that sort of thing. But because our lives are getting a little bit more filled, we're not doing that. We're doing a CSA this year, and we're just trying to go around to people's places and show everybody what's going on with organics. So don't be fearful about organics, and never pay for more money for organics. Just start doing it at your home and start eating the best produce you possibly can. And it's the cheapest route you possibly can. Never buy Miracle-Gro again. You don't have to do that. Bottled nutrients, you don't have to do that. You never have to line your garden. Just contact your local tree companies, get some wood chips. Get a garden pure filter if you can, or some rain barrels if you can for the drought months that you'd be using it for. You'll be all set. We've got about 5 minutes if anybody has any questions. Lady right here in the brown. Yep.
My question's about the runoff into the rain barrel from the roof.
Yeah.
When we have man-made shingles, not clipped. How much do we have to worry about?
I wouldn't worry about that too much. The question was how much should we worry about runoff off of man-made shingles? It's a great question. The amount of runoff that you're going to get from a man-made shingle that already hasn't gone into the storm drains, if you've been living there for a while, is minimal to none. Not much of a concern, but excellent question. If you have we're going to leave it there. Next question, sir, in the back.
When it comes to
A little louder.
when it comes to wood chips, is there either tree or wood that you don't want to do?
Mainly cedar, cedar, and mainly hard woods. But the beauty of it is that's going to be a very long term fertilizer. There are some growth inhibitors on some barks, natural growth inhibitors. Bark is a natural pesticide, and so you want to try to not utilize, like, you don't want to go to I wouldn't recommend going to a cedar grove anyway and chopping them down. But the cool thing about New England is there's so many diversity in